What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Catchpolia sitting on the couch making some money investing in fractional real estate online. As always, today I'm going to look at this Fourplex, which just came on the market on Lofty. If you haven't been watching my videos lately, my name's Joe Catchpolia. I am a real estate investor. I have been for almost 20 years, and I'm a real estate agent in San Antonio, Texas. I run a small team who we only work with investors, so we spend a lot of time looking at properties here. But for the past few months, I've been using sites like Lofty, Ground Floor, and Mogul to invest in other people's deals in other markets. And so, what I'm trying to do is just share some of my real estate experience, show you the way that I am doing due diligence on these properties, some of the stuff that I look at on the platform, and then the stuff that I look at on other platforms, other third-party sites that might give you a little bit of insight. I just want to let you know, just because I decide to buy a property or not buy some, doesn't mean it would be a good deal for you. So you want to do your own due diligence, think about your own financial situation, and decide for yourself. But I just want to show you some of the things that I like to think about. But so let's jump into this one. This one just came onto their platform. It's a property in Denver. Denver's a market that I really like, but let me just show you one of the reasons why. I'm always looking for, fast growing market. If you look at the population, really since the 90s, we've had really fast growth. And because it's a mountainous region, it's not, the easiest place to add a whole bunch of supply. So having increasing population and a little bit tougher to build than it is in some of the flatter, open land parts of Texas. You have some constraints to supply there. So it is a good recipe for, long-term appreciation and rent growth. But, there's a lot of other things to like about Denver. You should, just like always, I like to take a look at Wikipedia, read through this. As a reminder, I'm not doing 100% of the due diligence on this property when I'm doing these videos. I'm just trying to show you some of the places that I look, the stuff that I look at. But the biggest thing I always like to see first is like what does that population look like? Is this a market that's growing or not? And so Denver's a market I really like. The real quick thing I always check is the FEMA flood zones. You just never know where there's gonna be flooding and where there's not. Sometimes I've run into it in locations where I never would have expected it. So I always like to look at that. Obviously, one of the first things you want to do is look through all the pictures that they provide. But one of the things that you have to really remember, they do give you a lot of due diligence, but this is their marketing, right? And so when you see pictures like this, you have to just keep in mind, these are the best pictures they could come up with, right? So if you're seeing some imperfections in the stuff that they're showing you here, there's at least that many in real life. If you're seeing what appears to be a broken down truck parked behind it, I'm actually not 100% sure that is that, but it looks like it. That's probably what's going on there. They've got some rugs on the ground outside. That's sort of interesting. Overall, you want to look at the buildings. What does it look like? There's a inspection report. You want to check that out too. But a lot of times, the quality of the building is directly related to the type of tenant you're going to be able to attract. You're going to be able to attract tenants who are, take good care of your property, pay on time and all that stuff. This is not what I'd call a modern kitchen by any stretch of the imagination. I think when I looked up the age of this property, it was 70 years old or so. So, it's not super exciting from the physical standpoint of the property. But, you want to look at everything. A lot of times, you can spot a lot of stuff in these pictures that you wouldn't necessarily notice. If this is a line here. If this were in my market, this would make me think, okay, maybe we have some foundation issues. And actually you zoom in and you can see maybe we've got a crack there, right? It doesn't always mean that that's the case, but it's, one of the things that I look for. But you can spot all sorts of stuff from, if you take your time, really go through these pictures slowly. As I mentioned, there is a property inspection in the file, something that you should look through. I don't spend a lot of time looking through those when I'm on here. A lot of times because some of this stuff has already been dealt with, but also too, I think they're just pretty self-explanatory. If I see something sort of interesting, I'll try to call it out, but otherwise, I don't really think a lot about those. But so, one of the first things, um, it is it is fully occupied fourplex. They've got this rental range. Only one of them is a 1350. The other three are 1500. I put that in here. So, um, it's good to know. They're saying it's well maintained from the pictures. That's arguable. All brick. Yeah, I like that. Operated common laundry. So maybe that's some additional income. Um, you can learn a little bit about the person who's brought it onto the site, and then who also is going to be the one managing it. Um, Overall, I don't like so far. I like the market. I don't love the property on the interior. I really like fully brick exteriors. Um, you do see uh, some cracks here, but this is not really part of the building itself. I kind of wonder what this is, if there's hot water heaters in there or something like that would be my guess. Let's take a look at the neighborhood itself. Let's back out once here because I did want to see. It looked like there were just like cars parked in the backyard that were maybe, um, maybe just like broken down cars. This looks like it was being rehabbed. There's a dumpster right there, so that and that's the other thing too is that when you look at the date on this, and I think I actually have my screen cutting off the bottom of that on there, but it is. Oh, what happened there when we dropped that? That didn't work. Hmm. Let's try it. Oh, where'd we go? Let's try this side here. This is one of the vehicles that it looked like we saw in those backyard pictures, so that's kind of good uh, to know that wasn't stuck back there. But, one of the first things I always want to do is look around, take a little drive through the neighborhood with Google Maps. And, again, these might be somewhat outdated images, so whenever you do this, you want to look at that. It's nice to have a bank on the corner. There's a lot of neighborhoods that you won't have a bank there, so that's a good sign typically. It's yummy hot pot. All right, that is, already I'm liking this neighborhood. It looks like it's got, oh, okay, we got a mural on the side of the furniture store. A lot of times you see murals in places that are prone to graffiti, and they will do the mural to try to, a lot of people won't graffiti those. Wonder if that's what's going on here, if this is getting painted over, if that's what is happening. I actually think it might be that they're doing a bad job painting over graffiti, so that's not ideal. That was funny. We saw that sign. I think that says ideal furniture. Um, I was trying to see. Can we go back here and get a look at? This is what I was trying to figure out is if we could see the back. And I think that's the truck that we saw back behind there. So it looks like there's parking. If you go back there, I don't know why. I'm going to try to drop the little guy back there one more time and see if we can see that. Because it acted like we could. Maybe we weren't going to go there. No, it doesn't seem like we actually can. I think I was just right here looking over there. See if we can go down here. This is, oh, it looks like maybe we can. All right, let's see. Let's go down here. All right, great. So we're going to get a look at the back side of this. Um, So there are two. Yeah, this is the one. So okay, a different point in time. I'm gonna expand through that just a tiny bit. See, okay, October 19th or October 2019. So this is a pretty old picture. Um, it is. So you can see like some toys in the back, right? So there's not. One of the things I was trying to figure out is if there are, any separate backyard areas or if they're all the same. One of the things that I'm always doing here is, kind of comparing what is the value, what is this deal compared to something that I can get here in San Antonio? Because, um, there's a lot of interesting deals on the site, but if it's not great compared to my options in real life, like I'm not, or even compared to the other, options on the platform, I won't be too excited about it. And so far, so one of the things, here in town, we just have a ton of fourplexes four underneath what this is priced at. So I don't think I showed you the price yet, but they're, at the current $50 tokens, this is, 921,600. Um, Plus, you pay your 3% lofty fee. You pay your fee that goes towards the operating reserve. And so both of those things, jack up the price a little bit. Now everybody's putting that money into the operating reserve right now to start. So at least that's helping a little bit. I've got their gross rents. Is that right? 6,000. Let's see, 1,350 plus 4,500, 12. Yep. So I've noticed sometimes with the multifamily ones, they're not flowing through correctly, but I guess maybe just because it's brand new, it's getting it in there, right? They have a negative appreciation rate. That's interesting. They think the value is going to go down over time. So they're saying, hey, our underlying asset price is 918. When I looked at the appraisal they gave us, they said 900,000, and they even had also provided an update to the appraisal, which again was 900,000. So they're asking for a little bit of a premium over that. But then I also looked on Realtor, like I always like to. Look at whatever third party sites I can get some info on. And that's the other thing too, right? I'm just looking at one number, but you really want to read everything, read how it compares um, to the other, to the comparable properties. You can get a ton of great info from these appraisals. So don't, you shouldn't just look at that number and nothing else. Sorry about that. Just had a little difficulty with my screen recorder. Well, I was saying, you don't want to just count on the appraisal and nothing else. Although, you usually can get a lot of good info. I like to see what I can find on third-party websites. I know I've mentioned a lot that I like homes.com. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a value on there for this property. In different markets, different ones will give you some info and some won't. And so we have a Redfin estimate on here of 852,000. So that's not great, right? We're paying more than that. Zillow did not give his estimate. They're saying they couldn't come up with enough data, um, which is nice to see that they're not just making stuff up. They're giving us a crazy rent estimate, though, and I think that they might not realize that this isn't a single family home. And then also looked on Realtor. Realtor also gave us a low number, and it's almost identical to Redfin's. We're only $6,000 apart. So that's not a good sign, right? I don't love to see the two third party sites that I could find values on being so much lower. The appraisal itself is lower than what they're asking you for. I don't love that. Uh, Started, looking. It looks like it's got a good rental yield. Tried to figure out like where's that coming from, right? Because at 900,000, $921,000 and less than $6,000 a month in rent, it seems hard to get there. One of the things, and I've talked about this quite a bit, is they don't do any sort of there's no repair and maintenance line item or vacancy or collection loss or anything, except for in months that they actually occur. And so when they bring something onto the platform, if it's fully occupied and there's nothing wrong that month, you won't see any light item for that. And so that'll sort of inflate the cap rate and inflate the cash flow a little bit for that month. So you're a lot of times seeing the absolute best case. Sometimes not, but ideally the person's bringing something to you, in a good month, and then it looks good. But then if you look at some of the other properties we've looked at on the site, sometimes that rental yield says zero, even though it's fully occupied, because there were some other expenses. And so that's one of the things that we always have to try to really look at and figure out what's going on. Um, one thing that we can do sometimes is they will have, let's see if we've got it. Oh, I don't think that we do. I thought I had seen. It says the inspection report. This is where you'd see your lease agreements, LLC docs, loan docs. I might be getting this one confused with another property. I thought that there was a P&L with this one, but I must be mistaken. I must be thinking about another one that I was looking at. Appraisal, inspection, operating agreement. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So that wasn't this one. One of the things that you want to do is take a look at who this co-owner is, if you can see any info on them. This is a good sign, right? Somebody who's up on data as far as real estate related field. A lot of times people like that have or usually if someone's in the industry, it makes me feel a little bit better than if it's just somebody who bought one property, brought it on the platform, and has no other knowledge. But so far, I don't know, 15% yield is relatively decent compared to what you'll get as a cash on cash in a lot of the, if you're buying real world assets. But like I said, we wanted to see that where's that coming from, right? Because your cap rate was 6%. But as I mentioned, this isn't a real cap rate because there isn't any vacancy or collection loss coming out. There's no R&M line item, because there just doesn't happen to be one this month. And so, this number is actually inflated more than it should be. And so how do we get from that to, a 15% rental yield? And it is because we have some debt on it. Where is that? You can see the loan balance is 544,000. We're going to take a look, and I believe, they're just giving us the mortgage statement here. But yeah, look at this interest rate. So this is a property that they purchased as an owner occupant and then moved out, and they're using as a pure investment property. So that's interesting. But now we're not getting, it's a low interest rate, which is great. But the way that they handle mortgages on here is all of that interest payment, or the whole, actually gets paid for by this Derek Scruggs guy, who is the co-owner. So over time, as he pays down that mortgage, it dilutes the rest of us as owners. But what that does on the front end is really juice the cash on cash returns. And that's why almost everything that you see on the site that has a mortgage has a really high return. But so one of the things I like to keep in mind is I'm buying these properties for the long term. Over time, the rental yield is going to approach your cap rate, and it will approach your real cap rate, not this inflated cap rate, right? And so for several years, we might get the benefit of that leverage. But over time, you sort of lose it. So even though this is a decent, a cash on cash yield, it's not going to be the same every month, because every time some maintenance item comes up, every time there's a turn, a turnover in a unit and everything, this will dip, and we've seen that in a lot of the properties. So let's recap everything, and then I want to just give you a little comparison to what why this doesn't look super attractive to me. And it is one I think that I'll keep an eye on, because at the right token price, I might want to get into this. But at $50 each, which is what gets you to this 921, it's not great. So we're paying a premium to the appraised value. We're paying an even bigger premium to what Realtor and Redfin think. it's a market I really like. It is, it has reasonably good return, relative to, and let me show you, when I'm saying, oh, well, let's compare that to, can I move that without this breaking again? I did it. All right, good. The yields on some of the other properties that I have on here that I bought, not because, so I bought a whole bunch that are not performing because I think I'm getting a really good discount, but ones that I've paid close to full price on, I'm getting a rental yield 17% there, 13%, but this one, we're also getting the benefit of paying down we're not getting diluted in the same way with the mortgage on this one. And then, another one I'm getting 22%. This is probably the one that's like sort of the closest comparison because it is another duplex. Well, this is a duplex, not a fourplex. You're getting really good yield on that. I got this one that's 12.45, but this is a short-term rental and it's been changing quite a bit. Those are the only ones that I really paid close to the price that the property I think should be. Most of these other ones I'm buying because I think that I'm getting a discount because they're not currently yielding. And then, so when you compare it to that, it's not great yields at the moment. So let me get back to that property. Um, the property itself, although they say well maintained, it didn't look fantastic inside, right? But I mean, it's a 70-year-old fourplex. It's probably not going to be in the most beautiful condition. But let me just show you why it's really hard for me to want to pull the trigger on this one. So this is something somewhat similar in town that these are the kinds I look at every day. I have clients that have bought a whole bunch in this subdivision. I think arguably this subdivision is a much nicer one. This is a property that was built in 2016. And so this is here in town. This is in Colorado, which is why we have such a different price point. But you can see uh, nicer finishes, although this is not held up very well. But overall, they just a little bit more spacious rooms, bigger units. Each unit has its own separate backyard, its own separate garage. The types of tenants that you're going to attract to these sorts of properties, although they're very different markets, I think that you'd probably get a tenant that's more likely to stay longer, pay, be more likely to pay on time and whatnot. Um, oh, and then we can look at the rents for this. 1,500, 1,495, 1,450, and there's one that's not occupied. It's very common to leave one vacant, when you're going to sell it. But so somewhere very close to 1,500 per unit is the right number. And so we're looking at something that is, we're talking about $80,000 cheaper. Something that is 8 years old versus 70 years old. And just a generally nicer product. That if you bought this property, you'd get about the same yield on the property level yield. Actually, I think you'd do a little bit better with this because it is a little bit cheaper, and your repair and maintenance theoretically should be lower because it's a much newer property. Your property taxes are probably significantly higher on this one. Let me look at that. That's an interesting thing I didn't notice. Let's see. Let's go back to the financials. 4,000. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The property taxes are way different. So that's something that is 20,000. That doesn't seem right. Is that right? They have not been appealing their taxes here, I don't think, because we've got some over there, and that's a bit high, but it isn't like it's not beyond the realm of possibility. That's why I hesitate. But I think they could get that down a little bit. But yeah, you are paying significantly more pre-taxes. So maybe it is actually from a yield perspective, um, a little bit better than I think when you compare the two because of that one number. But again, I think you're saving a lot in R&M, and it only takes a couple of items to really wipe out that difference on an annual basis. But it is at the end of the day, which one? I don't know. So maybe I'd probably have to do a little bit more math on the two to really compare them. And think a little bit more about it because yeah, I forgot that they have such a different property tax structure than what we have, and I have to look into how certain that is. Um, I didn't look at what their management fees are. Let's take a look at that. Looks like that might be 212 divided by yeah, only 6%. So that's a nice low management fee. Um, I don't know. I think that overall, I don't hate it. And I'm comparing it, and I'm like, oh well, maybe it is just as good as this one that I just showed you. But honestly, this is not one that I'm selling to clients today. We're not paying this much for these properties. If we're not, if a few years ago, I'd sell a whole bunch of them, and it's because they were in the 580, 600, 700. But for the most part, we're passing on these at this price point today and looking at different opportunities. But it's something that it just, when I'm looking at this one here, it just jumped in my mind because it's a really, really easy comparison. And I think, like, when you compare one property to the other, I'd much rather have, the newer one in an arguably nicer neighborhood. Um, but it is uh the trade-off is, yeah, you are paying a lot more taxes, and maybe you end up a little bit ahead on your cash flow numbers on these ones, and then you definitely do, because of the lofty debt structure, at least initially, you end up much better off on the yield side. Although in the long run, you end up a little worse off on the appreciation side, assuming both markets appreciate at the same level, which is, a of course they're not going to. We don't know which is going to outperform which, but it's they're not going to be exactly the same. Um, but just if you're holding those things equal, you're gonna do better with without their weird debt structure. If you just had a regular mortgage on it, you're going to get the benefit of the appreciation and the leverage versus getting diluted, but you're going to get a much smaller cash on cash. And actually, if you got a mortgage today and bought it, you'd be faced with negative leverage buying into something today. So I don't know. Maybe this is, the more I think about it, the more um, maybe I would like to get into this. I do think, especially because this isn't a super high yield for the platform, I think there's a good chance that this is one that if we watch, we will eventually be able to pick up some tokens below the $50 mark. Um, Especially if they have, say, a turnover or a big repair 1 month, and this gets dropped down a little bit further. That's what I would look out for. I don't find it compelling enough. I'm not going to buy some of this today, but it's not so far out there that is there only one of those? That's kind of interesting. It's not so far out there though that that I would just rule it out completely, right? And that's one of the things that I really like about this platform is when I find a property, I like the property. Like I really would like to own something in Denver. So far, everything that I've seen there seems to be overpriced to me. Um, Part of that is because it's a market where a lot of people want to own there because it's done really well from an appreciation standpoint. So maybe that's what I'm going to have to do to get in there. Is buy something that I think is a little bit overpriced, but in the long run, maybe I'll still do well with it. But at the moment, with all the other opportunities on the platform, I think I'm going to pass on this one. Well, I am, but it's something that, even if this went to, like, what happens? You don't have to have a big dip in the token price, right? Like, so well, let's say the tokens, you get a chance to buy some at 48, right? And so total tokens 18,432. Just looking at this number right here, we multiply that by 48. All of a sudden, you're below the appraised amount. So for $48, I would bet once this sells out, there will be a chance to get them that cheap at least. And then, some of them, it doesn't really take very much. Sometime in the future, if you get them for 45, right? Let's see, 18,432. And yeah, I mean, then you get, that's below, but it's below the, what even what the third parties say that that's worth. So I think that that's really the play on this one, right? I'm not going to be buying this at this price. I think for somebody if you really want to be, if you really want a piece of Denver, if you're a big fan of multifamily, there's not a lot of great performing multifamily on the platform. I think there could be some reasons why you just wanted to pay a little bit more than the appraised value today and buy that. Um, for me, I like I said, I'm going to pass on it, but it is, I think it's a close one. It is, and it's a pretty good yield for not being, some of the other ones that have the good yields that I have are short-term rentals, which have a little bit different of a risk profile. But I mean, the couple that I showed you though too, like especially that duplex, that's a long-term rental, and I'm getting 22%. And then the 17s, are single-family rentals. So yeah, I mean, it's tough to decide. It's tough to know why I'd want to buy this one versus that. Other than if I'm just trying to get a little bit more, geographic diversification, which is, a big part of the goal of doing this. Um, but yeah, for tonight, I'm going to pass on this one. It is one that I'm going to put on my watch list, and it's only going to take a small dip in token prices, and I say that I just want to show you some of the ones that I've picked up that have some wild swings in case you haven't seen this before. So, for example, this mat, when I did my first look at this, it was a little too pricey for me, but when I bought into it, I bought somewhere in this year. Or was it even further back actually? Uh, it might have even been in this dip here. Um, yeah, this 56.63 I think was me purchasing. And you can see, well, you can't see because my face is in the way, but it's at $63.20 now, right? So, and this one has a lower yield, but like I said, this one, we're taking a large portion of the cash flow, and paying down the debt every month, and we're not getting diluted with that debt pay down the way some other ones are. So, I mean, if you were just comparing yields, like even yields, this one I think is actually a much much better return. It is just not it just doesn't look like that, even though the cap rate seems lower here. Well, that's super interesting how they're showing that, but that's one of the things. The numbers are always a little fuzzy when you look at this. And it's because they're always just annualizing the current month, and so you lose some of the info of what's happening over time. Apparently, they are working on remedying that, but at the moment, that's what we kind of have to work with on them. So this is one I just want to show you. The tokens do vary; they swing really wildly. Let me show you a different one because that is a short-term rental, so those ones tend to swing more. But let's see. Oh yeah, let's look at this ridge top one. I actually think I made um right at 50 when I bought mine. Do I have that tab up? Um, but you can see they've been down to 48, uh, as low as 45, 48. And I mean, it's not, I don't think it's been on the platform that long, right? All time. Yeah, it's only gone back to August, right? And you've had some like really big dips down, for chances to buy it at $44. Um, even though you're getting a great yield. And so that's I think the real opportunity that Lofty presents that you don't have. Now of course, if I want to buy a very large piece of that deal, I might not be able to get on those dips. You can't just buy all you want. It might be 10 tokens here, 20 there. But I think the way to really get the most out of this platform is to identify properties that you like and prices that you like them at, and then whenever those prices hit, that's when you buy those. And I think that's allowed me to basically average my, get a really nice basis on stuff. Sometimes only a couple tokens at a time, but it's something. It doesn't take a long time. If you log in every day, look at the couple of properties that you're interested in. Now you can even set alerts, if you want to. Oh, what happened there? Let me go back to the marketplace. If you want to, I'm not using them because I stay in here quite a bit, but you can set alerts and it'll tell you when the prices dip. You can jump in and get those. But in any case, like I said, I'm going to pass on that one today. Just because I do doesn't mean it's not the right deal for you. I always forget to mention this, but if you're new and you haven't signed up for Lofty or the other sites I mentioned, I do have a link in the description below. They're referral or affiliate links, so they'll get you a free gift certificate on here or something similar on the other sites. If you do put money on and invest, just wanted to let you know they do also send me, I think, the same $50 gift certificate as well. Um, it is. I only give you that because that's how I got on the site. I think it's useful. It's not like this is like some big source of revenue for me, but I have gotten a couple, and it's nice to get that free money doing something that I'm doing anyway. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to that was what when you see properties like this one, right, and this is one that I own, like you just get really wild moves in those token prices, and so if you find ones that are close that you like, just be patient, right? You don't just have to pull the trigger today. If you don't want to, and I think this one will probably sell out anyway, and then sometime down the road, those tokens will be available at a price most likely that you'll be happier with. And it doesn't always happen though. Like I passed on this one when I first looked at it, and it's stayed above the price where it was that day, and it's like it's not a big deal because you just didn't buy that one, right? And so it's Warren Buffett always talks about how like in investing is if you compared it to baseball, it would be like a no called strikes system, right? Like you're never penalized for not swinging at something. You didn't lose money, and you invested in something else, right? And so it's not the end of the world, and who knows? At some point, maybe this one will dip, and I'll get a little piece of it because it's one that I would like. I think that's really everything for today. So until next time, I will keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.